verse 2, okay? Verse 2 is there, the plot thickens, so we set the stage. All right, this is part of one of the patterns of my writing, and I think most writing is people have to know where they are first, okay? So
we huddled up, we held on tight, for grounded men were jealous of the angels' flight, angels' flight. They were butterflies to them, so they brought their boards to pin the wings and bodies of our gods for studying.
All right, what are you getting from that? What is this like? What am I trying to drive at here?
No, I think it's great. I think that, it really brings about the modern tendency to want to fix everything. And the idea that it's funny because I did a video. You probably didn't write this. You probably wrote this before I made that video. I did a video recently talking about King Saul, who wants to pin David to the wall like a butterfly.
I feel good about this song after I saw that video.
So you wrote this before that I made that video? That's amazing. There's a sense in which the system of order, which is good, it's not bad in itself, but it can be disproportionate when it tries to fix everything down. Like it tries to pin them to the wall. You said pin the butterfly to the wall instead of letting it to study it. You basically kill things if you try to analyze them too much. And so the idea that these angels, like these flying beings, that the modern person wants to try to contain them and fix them and try to dissect them, and then kill them, basically destroy meaning by trying to box it in too much and try to contain it too much.
Right. Well, so that's so part of what the world thinks. I think it kind of kills things for people. Is they think that once they've nailed down the mechanical causalities, that's all the thing is.
Yeah.
And it's like they totally miss the idea that things could be there, or inhospitable to the idea that things could have been purposed to develop that way, right? Like it does nothing. The scientific view does nothing to stop access to a top-down view of reality being infused by purpose, and meaning and love. Because we can describe how that thing looks in these little details down here.
Yeah, and you can't avoid it because you see it like it will always come back in narrative. It'll always reappear, even in the most like public narrative. I remember, for example, there was Bernie Sanders was giving a speech once, and a little bird came and landed on his podium, right?
Yeah.
And everybody was just everybody saw this almost as if they're watching this epiphany of a moment where heaven came down and gave its blessing to Bernie Sanders. And then in another moment, I think within the same campaign, I think it was one of the candidates, a fly landed on his forehead and was kind of moving around. Then it was he's he's evil.
Yeah,
right?
What if flies they land on poop? All right. That's
right. So flies land on you, it's bad. But if a bird comes down, if a butterfly had come and landed on their shoulder, then it would have been this powerful thing. But I think that it helps us see that, even though we can see that, okay, yeah, it's just a coincidence or whatever, but the first effect that it gives tells us about how we engage with the world and how these meanings can't be avoided. They'll come back.
Well, what's funny, the other example I use of that is when the World Wide Web became an expression people started using. I was like, man, over time, you see how positive and negative, that was the right name.
Yeah, nice connections and nice trap.
Right, exactly. So there was this search engine called Web Crawler.
I remember.
We're the spider and it's our web. It's no, that's not how it works. Spiders make their webs in high traffic areas for things they want to catch.
Yeah.
And so they draw, you're going to come through this way and you're going to get stuck. They're going to take, in a modern sense, they're going to take the information. They're going to extract the money. They're going to extract the attention from you, but they're going to leave you alive, right? And dine on you later at the next web. So that's really what the internet, I think one of the best descriptions of the internet is just oh, it's the World Wide Web. Okay, let's go look at a spider. And now don't imagine yourself as the spider.
You're not the spidey. You're the bug. You're the fly.
You're the bug. You finally got around to reading that C.S. Lewis essay, The Abolition of Man, didn't you?
Yeah. I read it twice. I read it a few months ago, and then I read it again a few weeks ago.
Yeah, when did he write that? The 40s or 50s?
Yeah, I think so.
It's insane. Anybody want to read a good essay, read The Abolition of Man. It's like, you'll be shocked at how much he was able to articulate the modern problem when it was like barely there compared to what it is now. And people still can't see it for what it is. And so he describes science as like a basilisk. Maybe it can only see by killing it, freezing it. Right. So there's this problem in the modern world where like truth has been condensed to just like correct facts.
Yeah, because like you said, so the idea of if truth is just the facts, then the experience of the world is something different. How do you frame it? How do you bring it together? Whereas a kind of more traditional vision of reality is not so schizophrenic, right? There is a sense in which our engagement with the world is deeply personal, and that's totally fine, but it doesn't mean that it becomes idiosyncratic also. It's coherent, and it works together in the manner in which we exist with each other, right? There's a sense in which we're not also just alone experiencing the world and kind of self-defining it, but we're related with others. We're engaging in good and positive relationships with people, and that's bringing together a truly objective world, not an idiosyncratic one. And it makes the world more alive, because then, especially if you're like related with each other, all of a sudden objects also embody more purpose. Like, so a tree is not just a thing with leaves, right? It participates in common memory. It participates in your daily walk, participates in you as a kid climbing up the tree. There's a sense in which trees have a deeply, they can participate in our stories as individuals, but also as communities. And that this is a part of what a tree is. It's not just an overlay over the tree, because the fact that we even notice trees as specific categories means that they're already human. There's already something that we see as having value just by recognizing that they exist,
So part of the world is like, there's this beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And I get this idea, but because you can go to the forest and say, okay, kids, like I can go with my family, be like, everybody pick your favorite tree. Which tree do you like the most? Right. Mm-hmm. And people will pick it for individualistic reasons and style choices, but you can ask that question in a more objective way. You could even, that's still personified. Like you can kind of capture the science of it and the purpose of it at the same time. You say, which tree is the proudest tree? And like, well, that's a weird question. Who asked that? It's like, well, you'll have an idea right in your head right away of which tree is like really treeing it up for that type of tree. Like which one landed in the ideal spot, grew the tallest, the most vibrant. It becomes more objective way, like by personifying the tree. It's actually, oddly enough, I believe a more objective way of assessing it. Just like if you like that, I forget the name of the lady who goes around and like fixes up people's houses and deals with hoarders. I forget. Yeah, but she comes and does this thing that seems silly to me at first, where she like talks to the house, and it's like I was like, why is she talking to the house? The house is where are the ears in the house? Like I didn't understand it, but then I was like, wait a minute, like our scientific minds can kind of talk ourselves out of anything. Like you can leave dust in a corner, you're like, it's just dust. You can not attend to something, and you can come up with whatever mechanical reason why you don't need to attend to that in the moment. But if you personify your house and you see it as something that might get sick if you don't take care of it, now you might intuitively gravitate towards things that'll keep the house healthier for longer. Like if you see it as like something you need. And so it actually makes you wiser faster than having to know all of these details and their mechanical descriptions to actually interact with things in a personified sense. You're going to take care of those little details, and it's going to mean more to you that you are doing it. You can draw more satisfaction out of it. Yeah,
but like you said, the fact that if you, for example, care about your house and you make it beautiful, and you think, well, that has nothing to do with the house. Like, if you put up nice decorations, you think about the different colors and you have a sense of detail and stuff. You think, well, who cares about that? But you are actually if you do that, you will participate in the being of your house. That is, your house will last longer in the world, actually will last longer in the world than someone who wouldn't care about those things. Because even by doing that, because there's something objective about human care, which you can see in buildings, right? That's why we don't care about those horrible buildings, horrible like apartment buildings built in the 70s. But we care about the neo-Gothic, that's a church that was built, 100, 200 years ago. because there's an aspect of care in it, and that aspect of care is what will actually make it survive longer. It's an actual objective thing. It'll last longer in the world because we attend to it.
It's more like
the same with trees, by the way, also, right? Because if you care about a tree, you will, if you personify it and it participates in your story, you're going to think twice before cutting it down. But if you just go into some strange forest that you've never been there and you have no story in that forest, then it's like, who cares? Just wood.
I always think about that too when it comes to war, like when you're in a movie and you see some random minion just get mowed down as soon as he gets out of the truck. And it's like, I in my head, I do this thing where I zoom back into like his mother making him lunch year after year in the teacher care. Like, it doesn't matter what that person's ideology is, but if you really personify them, it's a lot harder just to pull the trigger, or to be like, yeah, in a movie, you realize like, oh, that's a real sad ending to like a lot of love
that being's life,
like regardless of their nation's ideology. But I think that too, like the part of the thing is like, is that when people are getting this story where, okay, so the only thing that's allowed us to thrive in like public education spaces is not spirited language, anything religious, anything of purpose or meaning. Like they believe like the only thing that we can objectively agree on are these cold sort of descriptions of the world. Although a lot of theory sneaks its way in there, which looks a lot to me like religious content that contradicts a lot of other people's religious content in a bad way. But it has this quality of depersonifying the world where you don't have a spot in it. And like, I think it's sad because I think that when people start to get under this philosophy and they really start to interpret the world that way, like the inevitable outcome is like despondency. I mean, a lot of the messages I get from people when they're in trouble is that they don't feel seen. They don't think anyone sees them. They don't feel like they have a place. They feel like they're a mistake in a way. And like my worldview doesn't allow for me to see anyone as a mistake or anybody as too dumb or like the world is full of too many people, like people the point,
Yeah.
So because that's what the world is made for. It's and so personifying the world, I think has this like you step out your door and you're like, yeah, okay, this is my town. This is my home. This is my city. This is,
no, but you're so right, because look at how we are now with our cities, most of us. Like, I mean, I have the same problem, even though I can see it, it's hard to heal it. It was just that, like, I don't care about my city. It's just some suburb of Montreal. It's like, it's not, there's nothing special about it. And there's nothing special about it, even in the way that it's, happening, you could say, but that is just like the final fruits of this type of thinking, where we just think of, we don't care in the same way. We don't think of beauty. We don't think of the small things that give meaning. Like when I say give meaning, just give attention. Like the idea of things attracting your attention, and then the capacity to give attention to that which is around you, which often surprisingly will reward you in a way that you didn't expect,
Right. And people end up with this really fragmented existence because, let's just say you live in a city and the city has a strong identity. Let's say it's New York City.
Yeah.
But at the same time, your own mindset is that you only see as everything that built the city as evil, like all the people, all of this hierarchical structure that somehow led to this amazing thing that you're in. You have to hate them because your ideology, or you have to see that what that is evil. And so the problem is like, how do you reconcile the fact that you love living in that city then? It's like it came about by all the things that you're against. And so people are left in this spot where they can't even be satisfied, as you're sitting there typing out on your iPhone that these people made that you like allegedly hate or think they're part of the problem, and you're using their stuff and you're driving across their bridges. And it's this really kind of dualistic way of looking at things that ends up where people can't really fully enjoy or engage with anything anymore. They can't, like, it's hard to take the good out of things, or it seems arbitrary when they do.
Yeah. And a better way to understand it is that the world is always bittersweet. It's always mitigated. There is no, the absolute good. And I mean, for example, that's one of the advantages of the surprises of believing in God is also to understand that only God is good, you could say, and that the world will never have it all. And so then you can actually approach things in a more balanced and mitigated way, where you can recognize, for example, the evils that were done, you know, in colonization. You can recognize the evils that were done by all the different empires and all the different authorities that exist in the world, but then also at the same time recognize that there is an aspect of what we have which is good, and there is an aspect of things that happen which are good, and we should celebrate that which is good, and we should change that which is bad. But when we make one of the things that's happened, you know, it's almost as if in this kind of despondency, we've wanted, because people have kind of given up the idea that the good is transcendent, or that it's a weird way in which people actually want to see the good completely in the world. And that the fact that you can't see it in the world is leading people to despair.
Right.
So it's like it's leading a lot of people to despair because they feel like everything is rotten. And the real answer is that yes, everything is rotten and also living. Yeah. These two things kind of coexist, and you have to be able to live in the world in a way which bolsters the good in yourself, in the way in your relationships with others, in your surrounding, and fixes the bad, you know?
Yeah, that's a really helpful description of things.
Okay, that's it for part 2 of our video where Jonathan and I are talking about the story behind Enchante in this series called The Myth Behind the Music. We're going to be having more guests in the future, and Jonathan and I have a few more episodes where we're talking about Enchante. Next video, we're going to get into verse 3 and some of the chorus. So I hope you tune in for that. You can follow Jonathan. I put a link in the description to his YouTube channel, The Symbolic World, and you should be able to find that and follow him there. Now, please, as always, like, subscribe, comment. It helps us out and also helps you find our videos in the future. Outside of that, if you want to follow us anywhere online, you can go to dirtpoorrobins.com and find our Facebook link, Twitter, Instagram, all of the things. Our merchandise, we have t-shirts, we have records, we have vinyl for sale. Check it out, please, and thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.